this meditation, Ramana Maharshi does Gyan Yoga, the yoga of the mind beating out the mind. It's like Zen. And he says, do the following. He says, just do it relentlessly. Sit down and follow the method of the Chara Atma, the method of self-inquiry. Sit down, you say, who am I? And then you say I until you have I placed in the middle of your head, and you can hear it in there, in the middle of your head, I. I'll just take you quickly through it. We won't do it this time. You say, I am not this body. And then you experience your torso as object, and I as subject. I in the middle of your head. Then you say, I am not my 5 organs of motion. Then you experience your arms as object, your tongue as object, your legs as object, your anal sphincter as object, your genitals as object. With the I in the middle of the head as subject. You note them all. You note your arm doing this thing. You note it. Then you say, I am not my 5 senses. Now, you've all been in the situation where you're in a room where a clock is ticking, and you start to read something, and you get so involved in what you're reading, you don't hear the clock tick. And then you finish reading, and suddenly the clock is ticking again. Well, that's an involuntary example. You see, the clock continued to tick, your ear continued to hear the clock tick, but you were no longer attending to your ear hearing the clock tick. So at this point, you don't turn it off, you just note your ear hearing, your eye seeing, your nose smelling, your tongue tasting, your skin feeling. Then you say, I am not my 5 internal organs, and you go through respiration and breath, and you digestion and excretion and perspiration and circulation. Each of them you either fantasy it or experience it as object. And then you come to the stinker, the clincher, the powerful one. The key to the whole thing. When you've done all that, and it may take you months to get to that place, then you say, I am not this thought. What thought? The thought of I am not that thought. And you begin to see your thoughts as if you were looking at a ticker tape news thing going by you. I am not this thought. What thought am I not? The thought of I. Here I am. Where's here I am? Here I am is over there. Where am I? Where am I? And if you can play this one out, at that point you have gone behind your senses and behind your thinking mind. And you pass through a doorway. And you enter into another state of consciousness. And another state of consciousness is discontinuous with your normal waking state of consciousness. William James, the philosopher, said, our normal consciousness, our normal waking consciousness is but one special type of consciousness. Whilst all about it, parted from it by the filmiest of screens, there lie other types of consciousness quite different, each having its own field of application and adaptation. No account of the universe in its totality is complete which fails to take into account these other types of mentality. But how to consider them is the question, for they are so discontinuous with our normal waking state of consciousness. And you go through a doorway at that point into another state of consciousness. Now, if you are able to do that, where is it you go to? You go into a thing which is called samadhi. That's one name for it. You go into a low level of samadhi, and there are 8 or 9 stages of this. Keep that in mind for a moment, and let me introduce another metaphor to you, a metaphor in the Western framework. Think of a solid object mass as a pattern of energy. We know that. We're hip, sophisticated people. We know that. We know that though this seems solid, it is in fact a pattern of slowed down light. Just seems solid to our particular sense receptors. Now imagine if this is a pattern of energy, then light is also a pattern of energy. Sound is a pattern of energy. Thought is a pattern of energy. And what then is energy? And you get into a finer and finer form of energy because behind that one there's another one, and behind that one there's another one, and behind that one is another one. And you finally get down to the state of energy that is so fine, it is no longer unique. It's no longer unique. That is, if you think of an atom as having electrons and neutrons, and so on, protons, even the electron, which has a uniqueness to it, is made up of some of these, a pattern of these finer things. The quality of these finer things is that they are everywhere. Anything you can label, call it vacuum, call it space, call it ashtray, call it thought, call it emotions, call it Mars, it's all this made up of this same thing. You with me? You got the image?